Welcome to CooLife Podcast, brought to you by therealthingdating.com. www.therealthingdating.com.
Polydor Records for out scouting. This girl grabbed my bangs and ran my head right into the speaker.
Oh.
And everyone cheered like this. Yeah.
When we shot the scene in Good Will Hunting, I didn't know who most of these people were at the time. I mean, they weren't stars. It was Gus Van Sant that directed it. Gus Van Sant was on the floor with Matt Damon's character. I didn't even know who Matt Damon was at that time.
I'm Eva John. I'm a former candidate for local government. I was a children's television entertainer, and I love this world. And I believe we should take care of each other and have a lot of fun along the way. Welcome to CooLife. Here we go. The following is an excerpt from the award-winning short documentary film Ukraine War in the Eyes of Refugees, produced and directed by Olivia Pfaff. In this excerpt, military tanks drive over snow-covered roads in Ukraine. Then, uniformed police help frightened refugees manage luggage and a small child, which are bundled into metal shopping carts. We see a field of bright sunflowers in stark contrast to the previous images. And then, a child's birthday at a tented refugee camp. Arina is turning 7 years old in the midst of a war. She is surrounded by uniformed refugee camp personnel. And now, please join me in my conversation with Ms. Olivia Pfaff, award-winning film producer, director, and journalist, nominated for dozens of international awards for her film Ukraine War in the Eyes of Refugees, winner of several awards for this film, most notably semi-finalist for the London Indie Short Festival, March 2023, finalist Around Films International Film Festival Best Documentary Category 2023, and winner Best Female Filmmaker Cannes International Cinema Festival 2023. And now, join me in my conversation with Ms. Olivia Pfaff. Welcome to CooLife Podcast. We have Olivia Pfaff with us, producer, director, writer, brilliant creator, documentarian, award-winning filmmaker, and journalist.
And mom, you forgot mom.
I didn't forget mom. Which is like, how do we do this? How do we ever do this and succeed and create and be mom? So virtual high five to you for all of it. And welcome to CooLife Podcast.
Thank you, Eva, for having me. I'm so happy that you've invited me on your show. I'm a very big fan, so I'm really excited to be here tonight. And I just want to congratulate the All England team in the World Cup soccer, the English women. You guys played brilliantly. Congratulations to Spain for the win.
There we go. Yeah. Yes. Amazing. Actually amazing bit of news in the world of sports. And of course, that matters to you. You are in London, England right now, aren't you?
I am. Yes. I moved here almost about a year ago.
Right. So, I mean, you are Canadian who went to the filmmaking headquarters of the world, Hollywood, conquered and defeated them there, and then went to Paris, France, and then London, England. Like, do you enjoy the travel, or do you like having diverse home settings, or is it both?
So I wouldn't say it's that I enjoyed I mean, obviously I enjoyed the travel. Everybody enjoys travel. But originally I was not doing what I set out to do in Canada.
Hmm.
And it turned out that my husband made more money in the States than both of us together. So we left a long time ago. So we moved for the job. And then, COVID hit and Paris was a bucket list and all these other things. So I just decided it's time. And as you know, London's been on the brain for years. So it's just been like, okay, it's time to go. Time to
Amazing.
pack it up and pack it in.
A lot of people, they'll have their bucket list, they'll hope and dream and wish, and do they get to it? So good for you, because it's amazing to know that. I mean, it's inspiring for me to know that you just make a plan, you execute it, and you're living that dream. So good for you.
Thank
And
you.
you are definitely an outspoken, brave lady. And I wonder, was there a turning point when you went from being something other than outspoken to realizing that this is a world where you want to be an outspoken person to meet your goals?
I don't know if I am outspoken per se. When I speak, I try to speak with purpose, and I try to have my words have meaning at all times. So, um, just going to law school and being a mom and being a woman working in media and in film, I think that it's important that my voice be heard, but also I think it's important that I use my platform in a way that is constructive to my goals, but also to the feminist movement. So, um, outspoken, maybe not, but I definitely speak up, shall we say?
Certainly your actions have said a lot just in what you've achieved. And a moment ago I referred to you as brave. Absolutely, you're brave. You have received a lot of acclaim and recognition and awards for your recent documentary short film, Ukraine War in the Eyes of Refugees. And congratulations to you on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. It's so inspiring. But I also know, I mean, during a war, you went to a war zone and made this documentary. And where and how do you find that bravery to do that? Definitely walking to a place where there are guns and bombs and death.
Ooh, that is an interesting question. So I don't know if there was any brevity involved. Like it was just something that I felt like I had to do, and I felt like the story of the Ukraine refugees needed to be told from a different side of an angle that was not Hollywood related with all the boom and the special effects and everything. And so I felt that, as a female director, as a female filmmaker, that maybe I could tell the story from a different perspective. And there were times when I was in the war zone where we absolutely felt unsafe. There were incidences with the Ukrainian police, the Russian police, the military. There were a couple of times where there were guns in my face, and even some times where I experienced racism. But overall, the things I did to bring this movie to life, they were important, and it was a struggle and it was challenging, but it's a really great film that everybody should see.
It's actually really inspiring, groundbreaking that you could go there just in the really fresh early months of the war, and knowing that you were there representing voices of people who were directly affected, whose lives were turned completely upside down, being families, children, the refugees. And even just getting there, like, what were the nuts and bolts of the logistics of how did you coordinate travel to the Ukraine border? Like,
So there's not too much I can talk about because they could be potential security issues. And as you know, I am going to Yemen back and forth for the next 2 years because I'm doing a docu-series
right.
on Yemen, and it's a 10-part series. And because of that, I don't want to get into too much of the security issues just because this could be an ongoing thing and it could be something that could essentially affect my future security in Yemen and also possibly in Ukraine when we go back and do the follow-up and do our part 2 of this fabulous film. But I will say this, we entered Ukraine legally with visas, which were issued to us from the Ukrainian government, and we
Okay.
entered through land through one of the neighboring countries.
Okay. I see. And I understand and respect for your future safety and everyone involved, that there's only so much you can say about that. And, still, bravo to you and all of the people working with you to make those arrangements. It's impressive. Amazing. Now,
Thank you.
oh no, you are very welcome. Thank you. Now, nobody makes a film on their own. I mean, yeah, sure, you can grab a camera and you put your old sound system into a little backpack and away you go. But you actually had a crew with you, and how did you wrangle the crew and say, "Hey, we're going. There's a war. Hey, we're going to the war zone. Get in the van." How did you?
So there was some interesting parts actually. That's a very interesting question because we lost part of our crew at the beginning. There were a few people who just they bailed last minute, and then we lost our director of photography because when he was trying to enter, he had all the visas. And I don't really want to say this, but essentially, what ended up happening is when he went, he traveled all the way from South Africa, stopped in Istanbul, Turkey, went to Dubai, then flew from Dubai back to Istanbul and then to Romania. And then he was supposed to enter with us to the Ukraine, and then they wouldn't let him in Romania. They just said, "Nope, sorry, you're not coming in." But he had every
Oh,
paperwork, all the I's were dotted and all the T's were crossed, and there was no reason for him not to go in, so he didn't.
my
Um,
goodness.
but it was interesting, and we just had to wing it and use the crew members that we had at the time.
Of course. It's amazing. I mean, obviously their hearts were in it, and for your DOP to have to do a circuitous trip to try to get to there to meet up with you, obviously dedicated and wanted to meet the same goal you did. So
Yeah.
congratulations, his heart was there. And again, the end result with the team that you had that pulled together is amazing. It's got international recognition and acclaim. So we're going to talk more about you, your filmmaking, your projects, and your documentary, Ukraine War in the Eyes of Refugees. We're going to take a little break and talk about our sponsors, and we'll go more into your filmmaking when we get back at CooLife Podcast.
Thank you.
Those lonely days of lockdowns and isolation are gone for good. Go to www.therealthingdating.com. That's www.therealthingdating.com. It's time to share. Share your time, share your life, share your love. www.therealthingdating.com. Join for free. Upgrade at any time, starting at just $5.99 a month. www.therealthingdating.com. Because it's time. You're listening to the CooLife Podcast. We'll be back in 3, 2, 1. In the following excerpt from the award-winning short documentary film Ukraine War in the Eyes of Refugees, which is produced and directed by Olivia Pfaff, we hear the words of Alin Galeata, who is a representative of the Emergency Situations Inspectorate in Suceava, Romania.
The first day, I cry every time. I believe when I see the little guys, the children with their moms, buy food in winter, and they are so sad for their age. And when I see their faces, that's killing us. And I think to my children, I have 3 children at home, and I don't see them past 40 days.
And you look beautiful. I love the way you have your hair today.
Thank you.
You always look beautiful. But
thank you.
You just really bumping up the ultra feminine look, and I just love that.
I don't know if I'm a feminist. I'm just feminine.
Right. No, that's just the thing. I mean, when I was a kid and feminism was, I literally watched the news story when women burned their bras, and it was like, and next in the news, like with Walter Cronkite showing us women burning their bras. But that's why when women went into business, they wore like these big heavy suits that looked like a section of the Trans-Canada pipeline. It was just like, because they still thought they had to go toe to toe with a man, that if we brought our femininity, that we wouldn't be taken seriously as leaders. And so they mimicked the image of men. And it's just really, I love seeing how younger women of your generation and the new women coming up, that they can embrace their femininity and embrace their power and not feel that they're trading off one for the other. Right. So anyway,
because I can respond to that.
You know what? Feel free to respond to it, and like we can include it for sure. Like,
I'm not so sure that is the case anymore. Like, I mean, the younger generation, and you're talking about my generation, it's funny because when I grew up, it was your generation that I was watching on TV, and I was actually a really big fan of yours when I grew up. I was like, I want to be her when I grew up. But anyways, I digress. So this new generation of women, I find that maybe they've sort of backed away from being feminine, and that they're just kind of open to whatever interpretation they feel like on the day, but they're not specifically trying to like hide their figures, play their figures, or anything like that. They just kind of are. And I think that a lot of it is just, the new changing culture, the new Zoomers, they're just doing their thing.
Right. I think that's also kind of cool because they're not waiting for permission. They're not waiting for certain rules to abide by. And my generation, it is absolutely rules. It was absolutely, we just didn't have a blueprint. So we really, I think, stepped into the path that was set by men and just tried to set our standard by men.
And we still don't have a blueprint as women. It's unfortunate, but as a woman filmmaker, we are just finally coming into our own. And I don't know if it's an industry phenomenon that the men are giving us an opportunity and they're finally seeing us so much as we're just saying, hey, you know what, we are here and we are taking this opportunity in whichever way we can grab it. And I think part of that happened because of the Me Too movement. And I think if we didn't have that Me Too movement, we wouldn't be where we are. And I think, we'd still be stuck in the proverbial closet behind the Harvey Weinsteins of the world, and we'd be still suffering in silence. And we would just be waiting for our turns. I remember when I was 19, 20, maybe 21 maximum. I was starting out. I was a young PA, and I had my own situation with a location manager, and he was basically very sexual towards me, and I remember complaining to the Directors Guild of Canada.
Right.
And I did because I went to the Directors Guild and they said to me, they said, we can take your complaint and we can follow up, but just know that you may not get work anymore because people would think you're difficult to work with. And that was what they said to me. They basically threatened me. I think that made me leave the industry for a couple of years.
That's horrible. That is horrible and so backward. And frankly, it's illegal. Even
Yes.
with previous rules and labor laws and union regulations for directors and performers, it's completely illegal. It's heartbreaking that they would actually have the boldness to say those words. And, I'm glad that little by little, what's happening is women are suing the pants right off of these people.
Yeah.
And it needs to happen that way. It's not a cash grab. It's just to cripple their ability to function that way.
And without breaking NDA or anything like that, but essentially that is sort of what happened.
Okay.
The thing I think that bothered me the most about that situation, it was another woman telling me to be quiet and sit down.
Yeah.
And I think that was the worst part of it.
That's so hurtful and harsh, but it only went on this way for decades, for centuries, because our structure of our society and our families, it's the same thing, where they'll say, oh, they're old school, this family, well, they're old school, but there's women in every family. No family got to where it is, and no business got to where it is without women in there somewhere. And so, yes, we have been complicit. Sometimes that has been our safe zone to toe the line so that we still have those jobs, to have our so-called independence, and to have our place in our families. How many times did youngsters, boys or girls, come to their families and say something terrible has happened and nothing was done? That's mothers and fathers taking in that news and keeping the status quo. It's hard and it's harsh, but it's changing. And now people who have encountered this kind of behavior, they have a proper safe zone to go to and to take action. And that's being entrenched more and more and changing every day. I'm glad you were a part of that change too. And I congratulate you for coming through and surviving that horrible moment, Olivia.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
It was a needed change, but it was difficult, but I prevailed.
For sure. And thank you for sharing that, because these horrible moments, it isn't easy to share, and it takes bravery to share. And even though it was a strong outcome for you, I'm glad that you haven't swept it under the carpet, because if only one other person hears this and realizes that they too can find strength in knowing that there's a way to survive and successfully survive. It's not you doing this. Someone else has a problem and they tried to put their problem on you, and you stood up against it. And that's the same for anyone else out there. You encounter that, you have a way of standing up and taking action and being supported. Thank you.
Yes.
Now, the whole idea of if an alien looks down on planet Earth and just sees, people walking around, some of them, the babies come out of them, and others of them, the babies don't come out of them, and they sometimes babysit. And it's like the way that we've structured ourselves in the entertainment industry. And women have creativity, they have a talent and insight, probably far more than some of their counterparts who are men, and only because their voices were closed down for so long that now they're starting to show it. But do you feel that women are late to the party as directors? I mean, every time a woman gets an award, you start hearing the first from that country or the first in this community, and they're still hearing so many firsts. For the length of time we've had the entertainment industry, do you feel it has taken too long for women to kick down doors as directors?
The short answer is yes, but also I think that I feel that this is something that may not change for a while. Earlier this summer, as you know, I won Best Female Filmmaker at Cannes Cinema. And when I got that award, I was really excited. But first of all, like I didn't know it was Best Female Filmmaker. I thought it was Best Documentary.
Right.
So finding out that it was Best Female Filmmaker, it was a huge surprise, huge shock. Shout out to Ken. But what happened was, as I was going through the process of me processing that I won Best Female Filmmaker, my excitement kind of turned a little bit, and I was like, wait a minute, I won Best Female Filmmaker. Why didn't I win Best Filmmaker? Mm-hmm. So I was like, why am I in a category where I'm specifically female? Because you don't have Best Male Filmmaker. You don't have a Best Male Director. It's just Best Director. Right. And, it's just either your Best Filmmaker, Best Director, Best Producer. There's no Best Female. So in a sense, it almost felt a little bit hollow, to be honest, because I'm sitting there going, so if I'm the best female, and what is my competition? And I'm not really competing against men. I'm actually competing against other women and only women. And, I'm sitting there going, okay, so if this is the bar, where is the standard? Because as you pointed out earlier, I was in a war zone, and there's a lot of men who won awards who didn't go to war zones, and somehow we're in the same category, but we're really not. So I think that it's not that we women are late to the party. I think it's that men are inviting us late to the party.
True. And knowing that a man can win that award, it's almost like they're afraid to have to say to a man, you didn't win the award because it's going to a woman. So now they put
there you go
women aside, so the men don't have to feel they've lost an award to a woman. It seems as if they've created this little safety net to make sure that they don't have to trample on a man's ego. I love men. It's not a put down to men, but
no, and I love men too.
Well, the fact is, what men contribute, what women contribute, finding that balance, that we are sharing this planet, we are sharing our daily lives, and what is the difference between us? Is there a difference between us? And then to discover that being a creative person, they are trying to redefine your creativity based on the fact that you use the ladies' room. That is, interesting. I didn't even think of it when I saw that award, that is a division they've created to put women on a different step from men. I hope they evolve.
Well, I'm very thankful for the award, and it's an amazing honor to anytime you can win at Cannes and Cannes Cinema and really anywhere in France. But but the big thing is I'm happy that maybe perhaps this category exists, and I hope that there's a new day where there's this category where filmmakers can just be filmmakers, and we're not defined by which loo we use, if it's got a skirt or if it's got trousers. But the big thing that just happened, Barbie just broke $1 billion, and I think it's going to be the #1 movie in the world, and female director, so that's kind of amazing. And I think that the Barbie movie might be a game changer.
It might be. I think it's interesting that the platform of Barbie is it's not a perfect platform, right? I mean, Barbie started out with a physical image that was telling young girls, here's a physical impossibility for you. As I recall, the dimensions of the early Barbies had a bust and a waistline that would have been physically impossible for any woman to be able to walk around and live and survive. It was like something like the equivalent of a 13-inch waist and a 40-inch bust or something like this. So that's what the female equivalent would have been. And then, of course, in the early days, not being such a spring chicken myself, when I was young, there weren't any Barbies of color. And so my parents, when we came to that age where we play with dolls, my father, I remember we went to Niagara Falls, and they had the Inuit dolls wearing sealskin parkas, and he bought us those dolls. And so those were what I had early on instead of my Barbie, so that we had dolls we could identify with. Eventually Barbie has evolved, and now they've got all these diverse Barbies, which is really nice. And I think the evolution is good, but I feel like the origins of Barbie are also kind of questionable. I'm glad that it's breaking down doors today and they've allowed Barbie to evolve, but I also, deep in my heart, wish that all of this success could have come from something that had a more socially healthy origin. There. Disclaimer.
Well,
my disclaimer.
So I'm going to make a disclaimer of my own, and here's my opinion, and it's just my opinion, and hopefully
which I value.
Hopefully Mattel doesn't sue me. But so first of all, Barbie is, if we're talking about the look of Barbie and the color of Barbie, so to address that issue, nothing's really changed, because even though they have Barbies of color now, they've made them a little different, because they got big lips, they got huge afros. If you look at their outfits compared to regular Barbie outfits, or like the non Barbies of color,
right?
The Barbies of color, they are dressed a little more modest. They're dressed like they're in street clothes, like streetwear. They're not fancy like the other Barbies, but Barbie itself, I think she's more of a concept than she is a doll, because Barbie, she's an entrepreneur, she's a doctor, she's a lawyer, she's a judge, she's a nurse, she's a veterinarian, she's like a chef. She does all these things which are amazing, and that's what Barbie's supposed to do, to teach girls to be anything they want. And that is a fabulous message. But I think that Mattel still has a long way to go, because when you look at the Barbies of color, specifically the Black Barbies, they're not judges, they're not lawyers, they are rappers, they are singers.
Right.
They are not like professionals. They're not like the educated Barbies. They're not like the lawyer Barbies. They're not like the Park Fifth Avenue Barbies. They're not like, they're not the fancy Barbies. They have different cars, different backgrounds, and I think that it needs to be more inclusive. And I think if you're gonna go with inclusivity and diversity, then you need to be all in.
Exactly, because if young women of color are going to move into the roles of leadership and power in our society, they need to see themselves in those roles. And truly, we're robbing them of those ideals and those goals if they cannot even see that in the toys they're playing with, that they're seeing themselves defined already as going into music and entertainment, or being someone who enjoys that, as opposed to someone who enjoys science and mathematics and the law.
I think it's not really how I want to choose my words carefully here, but I think it's not how Black girls see themselves. And I'm using the word Black because really that's what we're talking about. Right. So what it is like growing up as a mixed race girl, or growing up with friends who are Black and who are female, and just being in society and being a diversity and inclusionism expert. I want to say this. it is always taught by Black mothers to Black daughters and Black children that, don't like, this is how we need to see ourselves. We need to see ourselves in position of power. We need to identify. It's not up to the Black race to keep continuing with that pattern, because it's something that's been ingrained for 50 years. But where the difference comes in is now it's actually our counterparts, our allies. They need to start being a louder voice. They need to champion us. And, as Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said, it takes a village. And I think with globalization, the village has just grown, and it's everyone's responsibility. And we're a global village.
Right.
Now.
Well, I really appreciate your insight in this. As a woman of power in a powerful position, basically, who knows that the world is your oyster, that your creativity is unlimited and unbounded. And I'm so glad you're here as a role model for all of us.
Thank you. I don't see myself as being a role model, but thank you. I'll take that.
Absolutely. Let me tell you, I will give you that mantle to wear. And so we're going to take a little break again here at CooLife Podcast to talk about our sponsors, and we will be right back. Those lonely days of lockdowns and isolation are gone for good. Go to www.therealthingdating.com. That's www.therealthingdating.com. It's time to share. Share your time, share your life, share your love. www.therealthingdating.com. Join for free. Upgrade at any time, starting at just $5.99 a month. www.therealthingdating.com. Because it's time. This is CooLife Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to CooLife on your streaming service and on YouTube as Hellenique Today. That's HELENIQUE Today. Because that helps us to bring more cool stuff to your ears. You're listening to the CooLife Podcast. We'll be right back. In this excerpt from the award-winning short documentary film Ukraine, War in the Eyes of Refugees, which is produced and directed by Olivia Pfaff, we hear from two women who have fled the war in Ukraine. A local man with a horse-drawn cart speaks, and then his words are translated into English by Alin Galiata. We see a bombed-out building.
I love Ukraine very much. I think that my Ukraine is my home, sweet home, and I want to come back someday. From Ukraine, from Dnipro, and now I am in Romania, in Radauci, and I go right here because I am scared, and I scared for життя мого сина, for my son. And in this country is very spokino. I don't know what to say, but it's very good and very, very, very good. We leave my country because it was very scared. The bomb. I know that my city is not Kharkiv, not Donetsk, not Lugansk, not Mariupol, but the bomb is прилетали до нашого міста, and I don't want to live in scare all day. It's very terrible. It's very, for my son, very, very, very bad. That's all.
este valabil pentru copii și alte viețuitoare, am citit asta.
War is not healthy for children or for another living things.
I think that, I just like it. It's beautiful how you do have an unlimited way of living, and that, if there's something you want to enjoy, you don't go, oh, I wish I could do that. Maybe next year. It's just like, hey, let's do this. There we go. I'm going to Greece. Bye.
I think it was more to do with just what happened with the cancer and all of that. I think it kind of changed the way that that I was living my life, because it was a scary moment, and you just don't really know if you're going to survive it.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a factor.
I'm glad that you have come on the other side of that, and that now it's just a matter of living life to your fullest and being the creative person who is realizing, there's things you want to do and you're doing them. And it turns a light on for me as well. I mean, even doing something like this podcast, right? Where it's just like, you can think about it, make a plan about it, make a budget, and go, oh, I think I could do that in 2024. And it's like, really? It's like one of the reasons I didn't wait. And then, you came through something which was a serious health crisis, and it made you see the world a different way. But it also turned a light on for me and reminded me, if I want to do something, hey, Olivia just does it. She just went to law school, just does it. And it's like, and so it's just like, you know what? I'm sorry that you went through that. And I'm glad that what your takeaway was, rather than letting it be something that brings you down, that it inspires you to be like, okay, let's go, pack your bag, let's go. We're doing this. And that,
but to be fair, I think in a sense, like I've been lucky, because not everybody can just pack a bag and go.
Right.
So like, I've been lucky, and I've been blessed, and like it's kind of good that the finances have worked out in my favor. But it's
a spirit. It's a spirit, because even when the finances are not there, then people can still do it on whichever scale, whether it's, hey, kids, get in the car, we're going to Niagara Falls.
You can always, if life has taught me anything as a woman, like, you can just do and just be. And I think I draw my inspiration mostly from, or like, somebody who's influenced me the most in my life, I think it was actually designer Coco Chanel. Because I think that she brought trousers to women, and she just said, we don't have to live in this little box that they demand we live in. And and she really lived, and she wanted to have her legacy. And what they say, the quiet women are the least talked about in history.
Right.
So there's that.
Definitely an inspiring lady. Now, see, because of that, I might look into her biography. Thank you. More inspiration.
Okay, do it. It's uncanny. She was involved with a royal, and her house just outside of Paris in France was abandoned. But Coco Chanel, like the rest of us as women, like she's had issues. Unfortunately, she even had some mental health issues, but she was kind of tortured. Maybe even, I think she was bipolar. Don't quote me on that, but she had issues. But she was such an amazing woman, such a brilliant designer, and she really, like, back to the creativity, like, it shows in her thought process. It shows, like, the love, the passion, the power, the hate. Like, it just shows all the emotions that women feel.
Right.
And it's really just amazing to be able to kind of follow in her footsteps and be part of that industry and see those kinds of things.
Yeah, of course. And it's amazing that she has a legacy for us to follow and see, right? Like she said, the women who are not talked about. So it's beautiful that she is someone who can continue to inspire with the legacy she has left in her work and her thoughts.
Yes.
So officially, we're back.
Okay, we're back.
We're back at CooLife Podcast. We are speaking with producer, director, award-winning filmmaker, and journalist Olivia Pfaff. And I want to know, Olivia, can you tell me what was the most difficult or challenging element of making your short documentary that with while you were in Ukraine and in the surrounding area of Ukraine?
Wow. Okay, that's a really heavy loaded question. I think the big challenge of it was actually seeing war firsthand, and you were there as a filmmaker, but mostly as a journalist, and you're trying to be objective, and it's really hard to be objective because you're seeing soldiers marching through the streets, and growing up in Canada, living in the US, being part of the Western culture for so many years, we don't see that. And most Europeans haven't seen war since World War II, so it was tough to see. It was really tough to see because I saw soldiers. I heard some things which I'm not going to say on camera. There was some incidences where I was in fear for my life, and there was a gun. I'll never forget this day, actually, because we were in the car, and this guy came up. He pulled us over, and he starts putting on a bulletproof vest. And as he's putting on the bulletproof vest, I'm looking at him. He's Ukrainian, and I could tell that he's not a soldier, but he's drawn into a war that he has really no appetite for. His wife was with him. His teenage son was with him. They were in a Mercedes station wagon, and I remember the car because it's a family car. It's like one of the cars that maybe I would drive, except I prefer BMW. But um, but it is a normal, regular looking car with a normal, regular looking family. And so he's putting on the vest and he's holding the gun on us, and he's kind of out a little bit. His English is not great, but it's not bad. But he's very distressed with the situation, and I looked at him and I panicked. And I remember thinking in that moment, oh my God, I'm going to die. Not because this man hates me, because he wants me dead or anything like that, but because he is as nervous as I am to be in this situation on this day, that, if I make any sudden moves, the gun's going to go off and he's going to shoot me and I'm going to be dead, and that's going to be it. And that was what was running through my head. And then when the police got there and the military got there, we were sitting in the car. At this point, the police were like searching our person and everything, searching the whole crew and everybody. And the crew who I was with were big, tall men. And I remember one of the guys saying, and it was like about 100 degrees, so like 40 degrees Celsius or something, right. Really hot day, very hot day in July. And one of the men said, can I get out of the car? And they were like, oh yeah, just get out, walk around. Yes. So the police were like, yeah, okay, go ahead. Are you fine? You're fine. Get out, walk around, whatever. And so I'm in the car and I said, do you mind if I get out of the car? And it was a different response because they essentially, and I'm choosing my words carefully. I don't want to say they pulled me out of the car, but I had assistance, and I was not treated as politely as some of the other people. Like, they said to me, do you have any weapons on you? These tall men who were 6'2", nobody asked them if they had weapons. And here I am, I'm 5'3", and I was asked if I had weapons, and I said no, and they frisked me, and they were like, do you have any guns? So that was kind of an interesting thing. And um I remember there was another.
And so you're saying then that they were taking you bodily out of the vehicle, even though these taller gentlemen were not asked, do they have weapons? And they were asking you.
No, they were not asked if they had weapons. They were not even frisked. These were big men in comparison to me, and I was frisked. I was asked. I was searched. So, and then
Terrible.
it was kind of invasive, and then going through the whole thing, I think the biggest part that was probably harder than that even was getting the footage out of Ukraine. Yes. So I think that was a big part of it.
Definitely challenging, and certainly important stories that needed to be told. I'm so glad that you were able to endure all of that. None of the people who care about you want you to go through that. And we know that it's a sacrifice that you made, because this was a film that needed to be made. I'm excited to know that you're going to be moving forward with a second part to the documentary, Ukraine War in the Eyes of Refugees. Are there highlights in your work that stay with you?
Yeah, there's always something. I think in for example the Ukraine War, the Eyes of Refugees. I think that I think what stays with me there is that the children who were going through war, they had such resilience and they had such bounce back. They were running for their lives. They were losing family members. They were homeless. They were in refugee camps, but they were happy. They were singing. They were able to play. Like they were able to just be regular children and just like live. And so seeing that, you kind of know that everything is going to be okay. And so other works that right now as you know, I did a movie called Heavenly Brunch, which is a faith-based film, which is kind of ironic in a sense because I wouldn't say I'm really religious per se, but I'm very spiritual, and I think even in that film, it offers something to do with like just giving. Just it was a giving film, and it gives back, and it shows me that there's kindness, and that wherever we can find it and we can see it, we can give it to other people. And I think that is the biggest part of where I'm taking my life, in that direction, that I'm able to give back to others and just able to help others and able to see others and meet them where they're at. And hopefully I'm contributing something positive to society and I'm making a difference through my work.
Definitely. You definitely are. And I mean, I know that this isn't necessarily why you've come into the industry, but I'll tell you just quickly. Do you know off the top of your head, for your amazing documentary, Ukraine War in the Eyes of Refugees, do you know how many nominations and wins you've received for that for that project?
Oh my God. Okay, so my dad would know better than I would,
Okay.
but off the top of my head, I would say we have about maybe 17 awards.
Wow.
I don't want to get too specific because you said off the top of my head, but I think we've had about 25 or so nominations.
Amazing.
And we've had like 7 honorable mentions, finalists. Like we've swept.
Yeah.
Well, we've definitely swept a lot of different categories. Best. I think we've had a couple best directors. I know we've had best female filmmaker. So
Thank you,
there's
friends.
that. Oh, and actually, we did win in Toronto Women's Film Festival. Like, so we did win in a women's one, and then we won in the LA Documentary Film Festival, which I think was a really big win because all of the films in there were documentaries. And so I think out of like 750 films or something like that, we're number one.
Yeah. Really good for you. Like amazing, amazing, amazing. And you have been able to be involved in some amazing projects that have had big budgets, that have been highly talented people both in front of and behind the camera. And in your comparison of making documentary film versus scripted film, big productions, can you tell me what have you noticed is the biggest difference in these types of productions?
Oh, yes. Okay. So I've noticed in documentaries, I think I like them more because you're not dealing with the attitudes of certain actors and actresses and wannabe princesses. But no names.
Absolutely. I'm not asking.
Whose name shall not be mentioned. Although I do live in the country of the wannabe princess. But anyways, no, I'm kidding, but not really. But no, I do know that like I find in documentaries, you have a certain amount of humbleness that you don't get in the other side of the film industry. And you're dealing with real people and real issues and real stories and real life. So it's so much different than being in the other side where you're dealing with actors who are pretending to be real people.
Right.
So if that makes sense.
No, definitely. I get that. If you're finding that to be a more rewarding experience, for sure.
Absolutely. And I think it makes a bigger impact on society.
Right. I mean, it's beautiful to be entertained, and it's beautiful to know that you've got that talent, that experience, the wisdom, and it is business savvy. Producing a film, directing a film, that is not just a game. You're dealing with so many different types of personalities, logistics, budgets that take a huge amount of responsibility, and my hat's off to you for this. And Olivia, I'd like to say, you are very welcome. Now, can you tell me your next project? What's coming up for you?
Oh, wow. Okay. So my next project is called Yemen. And it is a docu-series on Yemen and their continued state of failure. It's a 10-part series. It will focus on all of Yemen from the beginning of like cultural creativity to the war, the civil war. It's going to show the side of famine, the side of, the rough side of the oil industry, and just what it's like to be a Yemeni living in modern times. And my other project that I'm really excited about, that I'm most excited about, is the documentary on the Khoisan tribe of South Africa. We're doing a lot with that documentary, and we're going to just have a different view of Africa's first people. When that film comes out, we're going to really just see something amazing, and there'll be a lot of firsts. There'll be a lot of surprises, and it's just going to be a great positive film.
Amazing. I can't wait. And I'm so excited for you to be involved in these projects that are so meaningful, so rewarding, and that you are showing us all what someone can do at their very best in an industry that is touching everyone in the world. Olivia, I want to thank you for your time and giving us your amazing insight to your work, your experiences, the danger, the beauty, and the rewarding work that you've done that's been recognized internationally. Olivia, thank you so much. More power to you. Keep going. Thank you.
Thank you, Ava, for having me. It's been a pleasurable interview, and I hope to come back soon.
You have an open welcome at CooLife Podcasts. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was our show. Thank you for listening to the very end. Please remember to subscribe through your streaming service to get more access to our guest interviews. Also, please subscribe on YouTube to help support our podcast. Until next time, I'm Eva John for CooLife Podcast. Thank you for turning me on.